flight. Truly the miracle of the 20th century. No other form of transportation has had more global impact than the airplane. From the first flight at Kitty Hawk to the supersonic carriers of today, aircraft advances have literally shrunk the world. Any place on Earth is only hours away. The United States Air Force has played a leadership role in aviation. Now the Air Mobility Command, with its airlift and refueling forces, is poised to enter the next millennium, ready to meet the needs of our country and the world by preserving freedom and serving America through rapid global mobility. But our future is reflected in our past. Our past can be traced back to 1918, when the first recorded air transport of American troops took place. 18 enlisted personnel were airlifted from Chanute Field, Illinois, to nearby Champaign. By 1920, engineers had modified the de Havilland DH-4 to serve as an air ambulance to transport the wounded. In 1923, the first successful air refuelings took place, enabling Lieutenants Smith and Richter to keep a DH-4 in the air over San Diego, California for more than 6.5 hours. Airlift and air refueling have made it possible to move combat forces and supplies directly and rapidly into the battle zone. Many of today's air mobility tasks were developed and refined during the last 8 decades. Examples include the air-to-air refueling, and the implementation of air cargo service to various stateside depots in the 1930s, which evolved into a worldwide air transport system during World War II, and the ability to mount a massive airlift during the blockade of Berlin in 1948. One of the most notable aircraft used was the C-47 Skytrain. Often referred to as the Goonie Bird, it was the military version of the Douglas DC-3. The Skytrain, along with the C-46 known as the Commando, and the C-54 Skymaster, were mainly used for air logistics, troop transport, airdrop, and aeromedical evacuation. Skytrains, along with the Commandos, were the dominant aircraft of the hump airlift to China during World War II. Flying from India over the Himalaya Mountains, the airlift carried fuel, ordnance, and other material to assist the Chinese government in countering the Japanese invasion. In 1948, B-29 Superfortresses were modified into the first tanker aircraft called KB-29Ms. Refuelings by these tankers made possible the first around-the-world non-stop flight by Lucky Lady 2 in 1949. Lucky Lady 2, a B-50A, was commanded by Captain James Gallagher. The mission covered over 23,000 miles in 94 hours and 1 minute and was made possible by air refueling. Joining the tanker fleet in 1951 was the KC-97, a variant of the C-97 Stratofreighter. The C-97 transported cargo, troops, and casualties for many years. The Stratofreighter had proven itself during the Berlin airlift, where one C-97 carried over 1 million pounds of cargo in 27 flights. The 1950s also saw the introduction of the Douglas C-124 Globemaster, the C-118 Liftmaster, the C-133 Cargomaster, the C-130 Hercules, and the C and KC-135 Stratolifter Stratotanker. In addition, the C-141 Starlifter entered operational service in 1965, the C-5 Galaxy in 1970, and the KC-10 Extender in 1981. New presidential VC-25 aircraft entered the fleet in 1990, and the C-17 Globemaster in 1993. During the Korean conflict, the air transport fleet carried nearly 392,000 tons of cargo, over 2.6 million passengers, and more than 310,000 patients. Some 15,000 tons of supplies and equipment were airdropped. In July 1951, a KB-29M conducted the first aerial refueling under combat conditions when this tanker refueled RF-80s, which were flying a reconnaissance mission over North Korea. Korea also marked the first mass jet fighter deployments to be sustained by aerial refuelings. These deployments were known as Fox-Peter 1 and 2. During the Vietnam War, tankers and airlifters compiled enviable records. Tankers performed nearly 814,000 refuelings, supplying millions of pounds of fuel to receiver aircraft, such as the F-4, F-105, B-52, and SR-71. The strategic airlift capacity grew to 5.7 billion ton-miles by 1968. During the course of the war, tactical airlifts carried 7 million tons of passengers and cargo. It was during the Vietnam years that support from the Air Force Reserve and Air National Guard units proved invaluable. Reserve crews reduced stateside backlogs and even flew into Vietnam. Between 1967 and 1977, the Air National Guard supported the European air refueling requirements with their KC-97L aircraft in Operation Creek Party. Another important member of the air mobility team is the Civil Reserve Air Fleet. Formed as a partnership between commercial airlines and the military, it makes sure that commercial aircraft are available for deployments in the event of contingencies or wars. The Civil Reserve Air Fleet has been activated only once, during Desert Shield and Desert Storm in 1991. Many commercial airlines and charter services transported troops and supplies to the Middle East in a timely and efficient manner. In the Desert Shield Desert Storm operation, KC-10s and KC-135s delivered 1.2 billion pounds of fuel, while military and commercial aircraft transported over 1 million personnel and nearly 800,000 tons of cargo. During all these years, AMC and its predecessors have responded to contingencies and crisis situations, and they've provided humanitarian assistance as well. Operations such as Looking Glass, Chrome Dome, and National Emergency Airborne Command Post provided round-the-clock tanker refueling service to SAC, while airlifters were active in missions such as Operation Magic Carpet, which employed C-54s to airlift nearly 4,000 Muslims from Beirut in 1953. They also flew over 500 French Foreign Legion veterans out of Indochina in Wounded Warrior. In 1956, airlifters evacuated thousands of Hungarians to the United States in Operation Safe Haven. The next decade saw further humanitarian missions, such as Operation Creek Haven, which evacuated nearly 7,000 people upon the outbreak of the Seven-Day War in the Middle East. The 1970s brought such missions as Operation Homecoming, which flew nearly 600 American prisoners of war from Vietnam to the United States. The list goes on, from hurricane relief in the Caribbean to individual military missions in Grenada, Panama, Haiti, and other operations in Rwanda, Somalia, and Bosnia. With its dedicated personnel, AMC supports the national security of the United States by airlifting troops, performing global in-flight refueling, airlifting supplies and equipment, as well as providing humanitarian and rescue missions. Wherever there's been a need to airlift troops and supplies, from World War II's Operation Overlord in Normandy to the airlifting and in-flight refueling of Bosnia's Operation Joint Endeavor, the mission of the Air Mobility Command and its predecessors has always been very simple. It can be said in 4 words: global reach for America.